This has been a year that we won't forget. Challenges have always brought communities together. From pandemics to natural disasters, you've remained committed to your residents and local businesses. You continue to rise to the challenge, keeping your community moving forward, stronger and more resilient. Your stories inspire us. You remind us that there are no limits to what we can achieve together. No limits to connecting with the families and businesses who depend on us. No limits to modernizing asset management and our infrastructure. There are no limits to empowering GIS intelligence. As the world and your communities continue to reopen, together we're here to support you, because there are no limits to what we can achieve. Thank you for joining and welcome to Cityworks Converge Summit. I hope you enjoyed that quick video as we kicked off today's summit. I have thought about the things that we have temporarily been missing and been placed on hold as we've adapted and pivoted over the last few months. Virtual meetings have temporarily replaced live demos, conferences, and our trainings. And while they are effective ways to stay in touch, we have missed seeing you in person this year. We have missed traveling to your communities and seeing the work you are doing. We have missed rubbing shoulders with you at user group meetings and conferences. But the one thing that we have all learned over the past 8 months or so is that there really are no limits. So creating the Cityworks Converge User Summits have shown us just that. There are no limits to your innovation and adaptability to serve your community. And it has been wonderful to see how you have all adapted to keep things moving. This is a place that can be a professional development platform, not just another online meeting. So with that, we are excited to announce that Cityworks Converge User Summits will expand in 2021. We look at Converge as a way for us to remain connected. So we are excited to create more of these moments and hope this will be a place where we can continue to learn, connect, and share together. And to that, we're making a big announcement that we are planning the Cityworks Conference to be held June 8th and 9th, 2021. And this will be a full online event, so watch for more details in the coming weeks and months. So a few housekeeping items before we get started. Today's session is being recorded, and we will email the recording to all registered attendees. So watch for that recording in about a week. I have placed today's agenda in the handouts. So in your in the control panel, there's a spot there where there's a thing where you can pick up a handout. So go ahead and grab that if you want to see the agenda. And if the session today is being recorded, and if you have any questions, feel free to add them to the chat box, and we will address the questions after each presentation. So before we begin, I want to hear from everybody in the audience. We have a poll that we'd like to share, and we'd love your feedback. So how long have you been a Cityworks customer? Give you a few seconds. We have the most 1 to 5 years, and that is even better. Look at the 10+ years. That's pretty cool. I also love that we have people that are here, attendees that are not customers, but are planning to be. So thank you for attending, and thanks for being our guest. We have an exciting lineup today and some really cool topics, as you can see with our agenda here. And we're going to go ahead and get started. So first up, we have Craig Brown. He is from the city of Westland, Michigan, and he'll be sharing what the fire department has done with Cityworks. They use Cityworks to do vehicle and equipment inspections, as well as hydrant inspections. So Craig, if you are, I'm gonna go ahead and turn the time right over to you.
Thank you very much, Cindy. As Cindy said, my name is Craig Brown, and I'm the Chief Innovation Officer for the city of Westland, Michigan. We're a city of approximately 84,000 people, and we have some pretty active departments that utilize Cityworks. My role with the city is twofold. The first one is I manage the technological infrastructure for the city. So that in itself is a pretty fun role, but what I really have fun with is the second part of my role, which is I'm exposed to be looking for ways for us to improve the processes within the city using technology or not technology to make it so the residents provide to the services provided to the residents are better, faster, smarter, more cost effective, and gives us the opportunity to provide more services going forward. But to begin with, I'd like to take a moment to thank everybody for taking time out of their busy schedules to listen to me rattle on about one of our little stories of one of the things that we're trying to do to improve the city for our residents. So what we're going to be talking about today is the fire department, and specifically the vehicle and equipment inspections. The fire department came to us and wanted us to take some documents that they have for inspections and make it so they could utilize them more effectively in the field. Specifically trying to link the documents into their mobile devices that we've already deployed out to them to try to speed up some of the services that they have. This really gave us an opportunity to take a look at this particular process and see if there is a better way for us to do this for the fire department. With that being said, the first part of this is really understanding the why of what they're doing. Why do they need to do these inspections? What type of frequency do they have? What other processes do they have in place that we can piggyback off of to allow them an opportunity to really embrace whatever the new process is, because as we're all aware, not a single department in this world is going to be gung-ho for something that's different that they're already comfortable with. They've already got down pat in terms of how they do it. This was going to give us a huge opportunity to expand what we're doing and make them even more comfortable with changes that could potentially come down the road. But like I said, it starts with understanding the why. So with the why, we're looking at, what equipment do they need to inventory? What's the reasoning for the inventorying of those items? With the vehicles themselves, what type of parts of the vehicles do they need to be inspecting? How do they normally do it in terms of a weekly or a monthly basis? And when it comes to why, is there any outside sources that are really forcing them to move into these types of inspections, or what type of difficulties they're having with the current process that's making it so they want to move forward with changing of their systems? The first thing that we came to understand is the process itself is pretty manually driven, and I'll explain that a little bit further down, just how manually driven it was. But it was prone to errors. It was prone to difficulties tracking the accountability of if the work was being done, and there were a lot of extra moving parts that really didn't need to be there. with that being said, there's really three huge driving factors beyond the efficiencies associated with it that really was working to our advantage for being able to develop this process. The first one is they're required by the state of Michigan and other organizations, accreditations, whatnot, to do these yearly audits to make sure that the regulators and so forth know that their equipment is up to par, can provide the service that they need, and they have all the equipment that they need to provide exemplary service to the residents. The second part is compliance with our insurance companies. Just like everybody else, municipalities have insurance, and there's certain aspects of the insurance world that have to be managed when it comes to fire departments, when it comes to life savings. If you manage the insurance side of it, it helps reduce risk to the municipality, and it also allows an opportunity for some cost savings through the insurance process, which is always a benefit for any municipality. I've yet to talk to anybody in this world that isn't looking for a little extra money in their budget, and this is one of the ways that you can do it. The third one is the liability reduction. Going along with the insurance, there's also certain liabilities. If a vehicle is out of service and there's no other vehicle that's available for the type of incident run that they're trying to do, if the vehicles aren't properly maintained, that opens up the municipality for legal issues, depending on what the issues was. Like, for example, if there are no engines that are available in the regular call area for a house fire, then another engine has to be pulled from somewhere else. It takes longer to get there, and a house that could have been salvaged all of a sudden isn't salvaged. It's a complete loss, and then the city can be potentially held liable if it comes out that there's negligence with the managing of the vehicle fleet. Same thing with equipment. If paramedics roll up to somebody's house and they don't have the equipment necessary to save their lives, again, that's a huge liability on part of the city. So this helps us make sure that we are in compliance and make sure that we have our audits done and make sure that we ultimately have the ability to save the maximum amount of lives and to save the most amount of property when things go south. I mean, that's what the fire department's all about. When things go bad, they're there to save people and their property. So with that being said, their old system was convoluted to some degree. In the past, and they've been doing this for years. Let me predicate this by saying that they've been doing these types of inspections and audits for years upon years upon years, and they've tried a couple different systems to manage it, starting with just a legal pad and pencil back in the day, because that's what they had. And then they moved forward with, carbon copied papers and things like that. In this particular instance, they're using 4 different documents, 2 PDFs and 2 Word documents. And with these, like, for example, you can see over to the left is a checklist for rescue equipment. So for example, it's just a listing of what they're supposed to have. So they would have to take this piece of paper, they'd have to print out, and they'd have to manually check off what they have, what they don't have, going down through this list. And it was a couple pages long. And they would have 1 PDF for the rescue vehicles and 1 PDF for the fire engines. And then the same thing with the actual vehicle inspections, which you can see over here to the right. They had 1 for the rescue vehicles and 1 for the engines. This was a Word doc, and it got a little bit fancier. They have little drop-down tabs on here, but the fire department staff don't have laptops that they could take out to the vehicle to do the inspection. So ultimately, again, they would print this out, they would mark off on it what they need to mark off, and then they would go back to a desktop computer, and then they would go through the form again and go through the drop-down boxes and mark them off. And then once they did get done with this very tedious task of duplication of work, then they had to get it to their supervisor, or the supervisor had to hunt down the crew that did the inspection, see if they actually did it and where the forms are. And if there were handwritten notes on, they had to try to decipher the notes, especially when it came to items that were damaged. Like, for example, if one of the fire engines needed to have the coolants changed out, if the people who were inspecting it didn't mark it clearly that it needed to be replaced, the coolant needed to be replaced, then they would have they wouldn't know about it, and then it'd go to the next inspection before it was caught. So there's potential of vehicles being out of service. And that doesn't even include the additional paperwork that the supervisors were keeping on the side to keep track of which vehicles in the fleet were in service, which ones were out of service, where the vehicles were at, what type of work was being done on them. So there is a very convoluted and complex process involved with this. So we decided that instead of going with the idea of taking these documents and putting them onto iPads, which they already had for other purposes, so they could do them in the field, we knew that there was a better way that we could do this, because putting those documents onto the iPads didn't resolve the convoluted process of it. You still had people having to chase after people. You still had the documents having to go somewhere. Documents could get lost. What about notes? You still had all that to deal with. So we decided to do something simpler. So we decided to build 4 mobile-friendly inspections within Cityworks. And the reason why we decided to go along this line is, first of all, these are checklists and inspections. This system in Cityworks is literally inspections and checklists. So why won't we use that? The other part of it is that the fire department was already, for the last couple of years, utilizing a system that we put in place for them. It was actually our first system that we put in place for involving Cityworks with the fire department, involving the inspection of our water hydrants within the city. And that went over phenomenally well. That was a great success for us. The firefighters picked it up really fast. They were very happy with how it worked. There wasn't a single firefighter that I've talked to in the last couple of years who didn't like how that process was compared to their old process. So we wanted to build on that success. And to do that, we copied what we did with the hydrant inspections and expanded it to include the inspections of the vehicles and the checklists for the equipment. So with that, we took the 4 documents and we broke them into 4 separate inspection types. So 1 checklist for rescue vehicles, 1 checklist for engines, 1 vehicle inspection for engines, 1 vehicle inspection for the rescue vehicles. We took all the questions that were on those forms and we put them as observations within the inspections, which had very simple just check mark options. The equipment checklist over here, it was very simple. That it was just literally O2 mask, check. Bag valve mask, check. End tidal CO2 detection capability, check. It was just simple, really easy checks that they could do on an iPad, speeding up the process of the inspections. At the bottom, there is options for adding any comments that they wanted to add to, which they could type in really fast through an iPad, or they could write with their finger. They could add attachments. So, you know, there's the old saying that a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, it holds true. So they could take pictures, embed them directly into the inspection, so there's no question about the repairs that need to be done. To add accountability to it, the inspections, the person doing the inspection had to put their first initial and last name. So the supervisors knew who was doing the inspections or doing the checklists. It really made a difference in terms of how much faster the process was from start to finish. Once we did set up the inspections, we created new groups in Cityworks for the firefighters to utilize with these inspections. We added them to the inbox on the iPads for the accounts that they were already using for the hydrant inspection. So all I had to do was click on the inbox and the inspections were there. They're designed so they build every week. So when the previous week's inspection is completed or checklist is completed, it immediately builds a child inspection for the following week. So we automated as much as possible in this system. So not only did we do this for the firefighters, but we also wanted to look at the overall process involving work orders, and how the administrators of this program, the supervisors, would be able to do what they needed to do to make sure that there's accountability and these things were being done. So we created 2 brand new dashboards that we added to the supervisors. One is specifically for the rescue vehicles equipment and engine equipment. The other one was for the vehicle inspections, engines and rescues. One of the things we looked at with this is not only did we want to provide these inspections, but we also wanted it to be accountable and an easy way for the supervisors to know if the inspections are being done, if they're not being done, and access to the inspections themselves very quickly. So we have incomplete inspections are listed. We've got the equipment checks for the past 30 days. We created reports for the supervisors that they can just hit a button, print out a report of X amount of checklists or inspections for a period of time. Specifically, that's for the audits. So they'll have the paperwork necessary for the audits readily available. They don't have to do any data mining for it. They don't have to do their own save searches. We created as simple of a system as possible for not just the firefighters, but the administrators of the program also. Now, going along with that, we wanted to look at, like I said, not just inspections, but everything that happens after inspections. What about when work needs to be done? So to do that, we looked at how we could manage the vehicles. So we decided to create the vehicles as assets in the system, so we could attach the inspections to the vehicles, and also we can add work orders to the vehicles. So the firefighters, when they're out doing the inspections in the equipment base, they can add a work order directly to connected to inspection, and it's linked to that vehicle. So there is actual now records being automated immediately on work that needs to be done for these vehicles. On the vehicle inspection dashboard, we have the VIN numbers of all the vehicles. We decided to use that as a unique identifier. So it shows the VIN number and all the vehicles. And if you click on the VIN, then you can see all the inspections that were done on it, all the work orders that have been done on it. It's all right there. Now, we also added a custom field of, or a custom assets field of in service or out of service. So now the supervisors can track whether or not the vehicle's in service or it's out of service, and they can easily change that back and forth based off the work orders that are coming in and when work orders are being closed out. So they will always have a real accurate understanding of what vehicles they have in play, what vehicles they don't have in play, which is super, super important. So with the dashboards that are in place and the inspections that are in place, we feel that we were able to give our firefighters the absolute best system possible for them to be able to waste less time doing the administrative side of their job and spend more time being able to save people's lives, save people's property, train to be better at what they do, and just make it so it's a better city overall. So with that, I want to thank everybody for the time that you gave me to present our little system in our city. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Craig, for that. As I watched that, it looks like that has made the supervisors and firefighters, officers tracking much easier than before Cityworks has come along, a lot more organized. We do have a couple of questions. Are those assets tied to the station and then kept in a related table?
They're not tied to the location of the stations because the vehicles can actually be moved from station to station depending on whether or not the vehicle is in service or out of service. It's something that I didn't mention going along with it. I'm glad somebody brought up about stations, is we are looking down the road to add a storeroom to the fire department. So they'll be able to actually track their supplies in the stations, and then moving those supplies into the vehicles. So the vehicles at that point will be storerooms also. So the stations and the vehicles will be storerooms. Plus we'll have the vehicles as assets. So it's going to be really interesting when we go down that road.
Okay, let's do one more. When you say work order for the trucks, are you talking about pre-post trip inspections?
The work orders would be if repairs need to be done on the vehicles during the inspection process. Now, with that being said, the firefighters could use the system to create a work order if they came up with something being damaged while they're out at an incident. Absolutely, there's no question about it. The iPads are actually mounted inside the vehicles, so they can actually do it while they're at the incident. So for example, if they take out a 200-foot hose and they find that there's a hole in it at the incident, they can put in the work order immediately while they're at the incident, so they can start the process of replacing that hose as soon as they get back into the station. So it becomes more of a just-in-time, real-time type of service.
That's awesome. You had a few more questions roll in, but we're running short on time, so we're going to move on. Thank you again for this presentation and for the information that is super helpful.
Thank you very much. I'm always happy to answer anybody's questions.
We will forward those on to you.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Craig. Next up, we have Nick Hetrick. He is from King County, Washington. Nick will be sharing how his city has used Cityworks to consolidate legacy systems and streamline workflows. Nick, you're up.
Hi. Hi, Nick Hetrick. I'm from King County, and I am our technical lead on our Cityworks implementation and kind of handle the day-to-day administration. Get into our presentation. It's kind of about basically our journey of implementing Cityworks and where we came from and where we're at now with it. So I was just going to give a general overview of King County and basically kind of a brief overview of our Cityworks implementation and history and what we have now. And then I was going to talk about some of our programs that focus on stormwater. Some of them are NPDES permit related. Those would be our water quality compliance programs. And then we also have a stormwater facility inspection program. And I'm going to be able to, if time, get into some future enhancements planned. So King County, it's a pretty large county. It's roughly size-wise, we're about the overall area. It's the size of Rhode Island, the state. We're the county entity, so we're not managing assets inside the incorporated areas, but which is a kind of a challenge for us because we do have urban islands, so our assets are kind of spread out from anywhere from a very rural type land use or to a very incorporated areas that are pretty close to the city of Seattle. We're a phase 1 jurisdiction, so and our permit is managed by the Department of Ecology here in Washington. And we have roughly 2,070 stormwater facilities, and that would be ponds, vaults, proprietary things like media filters. And then we have a total of 39,000 catch basins in our jurisdiction, and about 11,057 miles of closed conveyance. So that's just pipe only. We also have a significant amount of open conveyance as well, and that would be more prevalent in our rural areas. So Cityworks at King County. So we basically, my department was so far we're the most recent department to implement Cityworks. We previously had 2 other departments that have it, and our road services department has been using Cityworks the longest. And then we actually have an airport, King County International Airport, and they're using a special build of Cityworks on their own instance. Since it's an airport, it's a lot different than what we're doing, kind of more in a public works setting. And the reason why we in Stormwater Services decided to go with Cityworks was because it allowed us to leverage our already built out GIS inventory, which took us a lot of time to standardize and collect all those assets. So Cityworks was a really good choice for us because we didn't actually have to modify our schema to use Cityworks. And prior to having Cityworks, we kind of relied on a hodgepodge of applications, and was everything from Excel to Access to custom .NET applications. And then some of it was just managed through email. So we've kind of actually compressed these data sets into Cityworks and GIS basically. So we started our implementation in 2018. We actually did most of it in-house, but we did have help from Cityworks, leveraging their Jumpstart program, which was really good. It kind of trained us how to manage the software, and then also helped us set up a couple templates, and then we were kind of off and running to do our own requirements gathering and build out with our own staff. And by 2019, we were pretty much that was our first go live for our first program. So it was a phased approach. So we were kind of going live with certain programs and shutting off legacy applications, and then bringing in new programs as they were built out in Cityworks. So right now we have about 3 what we call domain admins, who are the main configurers and administrators of the Cityworks instance for stormwater services. And right now, in just stormwater services, not the other groups, we have about 80 plus daily users accessing the application. So our first program that we actually went live with was our local source control inspection program. And this is basically a program that goes to not just businesses, but it could be commercial, anything kind of commercial, such as a multifamily residential site, or schools, and even some county properties that would fit into this program. And basically they used to run the program kind of using, the inspector would go out with carbon paper, and that's what they would use to conduct their inspection. And then they would, when they were done, they would give, the site manager, or whoever was in charge of intaking that data from the inspection, the yellow copy of the carbon paper. And then the other stuff would get filed in a file cabinet. So this was a good actual program that we started to do first with our implementation. It didn't have a ton of inspection templates, so it was easy for us to kind of take us one of our smaller programs and do the implementation and really learn how to get going with Cityworks. So basically, we were able to really replicate their workflow without disrupting their existing workflow too much by using Cityworks. So we basically used work orders as a kind of inspection file for them. So that would, since they have multiple inspections, the inspection for that year would be held in a work order, and then you'd have all the inspection forms that would include re-inspections and stuff like that, all kind of wrapped up inside one work order package. And then the tasks were also something they needed as well. So that was really good for them to mimic their existing workflow. One of the good things about Cityworks was the scheduling. That was always kind of a problem. They never had a tool to do that. So at the beginning of the year, the program manager was kind of looking at all this historical data and trying to figure out, what sites they need to go to. And now that's kind of automated inside Cityworks, because the next inspection will kind of be scheduled when they close out the current year's inspection, and it could be 1, 2, or 3 years, depending on the site's compliance history and some other factors that would determine that. And some other advantages of using Cityworks for this program is our inspectors basically can generate that same carbon paper form of the inspection. They can generate that on site, and they can also, we did end up getting printers, because some people just, they like paper, and that way they can hand them the inspection results on site, or they actually can just send them an email with a PDF. And we did leverage SQL Server reporting services to build those forms. So it basically looks exactly the same. We did have to do a little bit of integration by putting some buttons into the Cityworks forms. So the inspector can kind of just click on that button, and it'll generate the inspection report. And then also, if there's a corrective action letter that needs to be sent, they can also generate that from Cityworks, and it uses the inspection data. For some of our MPDS compliance reporting, we're actually moving to the Esri Ops dashboards, and we're using the data from Cityworks directly inside those dashboards, and it'll give them basically the count of inspections they need to report. And also, we've been looking into some other things like how many sites are getting initial compliance and stuff like that. So we're able to kind of visualize that more now using the inspection data with Cityworks, and then combining it with Esri Ops dashboard. So one of our other programs that was kind of went along with the source control, it's the same group, was basically our water quality incident response. So this would be responding to things such as spills or polluting business practices. And we kind of get the intake through these from, it could be from a service request, or it could be from other county staff out doing an inspection and they see something, and then they submit a service request. So that's kind of, the service request is kind of where everything is, the intake is done and it's triaged to determine if we're going to actually send somebody out for it. And in most cases, we do for something like this. While we were building this, the state actually came out, Department of Ecology came out with a kind of a, you shall do this type of data schema for these inspections, or these, I guess you can call them inspections, basically what data that needed to be collected when you're responding to one of these. And that was actually good because we used that exact information to build our forms in Cityworks. So basically we mimic that form in Cityworks. It was really easy to do with the way you can design inspection forms in Cityworks along with the custom fields. And basically we were able to automate the export of that data, and which is required by the permit. So we automated the export of that annually, so we can just send that data off exactly how they're requesting it in the permit, and then that that piece of compliance is done in a much quicker way than we were able to do before. This was a new requirement, so we didn't have to do it previously, but it would have been really challenging with our old systems of how we were doing it with like Access. And it also would have taken us a lot longer to adapt. We also had some SharePoint workflows to basically generate some emails that we have to send to the state, kind of. And we were able to integrate that with Cityworks, so we can just send the email to our regulator basically, and can do that from Cityworks using basically a report and what was collected during the inspection. So that actually we don't have to rely on the SharePoint workflow, which it was kind of good timing because those are actually getting retired and we have to kind of move away from those now. And again, this was another thing where the inspectors in the field are actually enjoying the use of this because they're not having to come back and kind of take all their notes they took and compile like a Word document and then actually kind of take all their photos off their phone. It's all kind of, once they do the inspection in the field and take the photos, which are done as attachments in Cityworks, everything's pretty much done for them. They might do a review of it. They do use Cityworks Mobile, so they might come back into come back and look at it in Cityworks Office just to finalize and double check everything with these. And then, yeah, the last point I wanted to make is just that the custom fields and the inspection forms make it, the way it's configurable in Cityworks makes it easy to handle future regulatory changes, which we pretty much know that there'll always be something new coming. So this just makes it a lot easier for us to adapt than it did with our custom systems, where we'd have to kind of like change code inside .NET and stuff like that. And we're also able to do this in our own group, not have to put in a ticket to IT to have us build like a new module inside a custom application. And the county-owned facility inspections are kind of our, what I would call like a traditional stormwater management function. And it kind of leverages all of the modules of Cityworks. So basically we have a facility inspection work order that has all of the facility assets, which facility is kind of just a, it can be like a property that our pond is sitting on, along with all the assets inside of it that we maintain. And we kind of track that and call that a facility. So we basically use a work order as an inspection, and then all of the inspection forms and assets are in that work order. And then any maintenance work that would be done would be child work orders off that. And then also automates the scheduling, because once they close out the inspection work order, it'll generate the next one based on what inspection cycle that facility's on. And that was something that our previous systems, the scheduling was really not able to be done in an automated fashion. And our old systems didn't leverage GIS, which was kind of a problem. So we had kind of two asset registries. I mean, one was like a sketch-based type thing that they were using in the old systems, and didn't have GIS. So now we have all of our assets in one place, and it's better because all the inspectors and the people editing the data are all working off the same data set. And when we did do this implementation of this program, it was actually pretty easy in Cityworks to replicate our existing functionality, what we had in the old system. So that was kind of nice. And then it had a lot of value added stuff just by going to Cityworks that we didn't really have to put time into building. It was just already there. And our inspection staff who do these inspections basically use Cityworks Mobile in the field. And then they do come back in and still use the office interface to kind of finalize their inspections and kind of just do a once over before they hand it off to basically resubmit it back to the manager to approve any maintenance work that needs to be done. So there's kind of an approval workflow inside of Cityworks. And to help make this efficient with the staff, basically kind of develop inboxes for them so they can kind of see what inspections they have scheduled, because our inspectors work across multiple programs in Cityworks, and it kind of gives them a nice way to organize their work by having these dashboards so they can kind of see exactly what they need to do, and then also when certain things are due on certain timelines. And then for the management, it's also easy to see if there's like a maintenance item that our maintenance crews haven't got to yet, and they can make sure that gets done within the permit timeline, so we're not out of compliance, basically. And then we also were using the reporting services because the maintenance crews still actually do like a printout. So we did integrate our reporting services with using the XML to have a button in there that basically will open that work order, and they can print them out as needed. And they like that still. We're still the maintenance crews. We're looking at getting them iPads, and then they probably won't be needing these as much, but they still kind of like the paper. So it's no extra work for us to have both options, really. And on top of that, we also do a very similar but different is our commercial facility inspection program. And this was previously done using a custom system, which didn't meet all the needs. So then we had basically to augment it with, some files such as Excel, and I think there was also an Access database involved, and to try and pick up the shortfalls that the in-house custom system couldn't handle. But we actually were able to get all of this done inside Cityworks. And the difference between our commercial program is it's facilities that we don't own, but we do inspect them, and they're maintained by a private entity. And the reason why we do inspect these is because our county has a surface water management fee discount program. So if a private entity that has like a stormwater flow control facility, a pond, a vault, bioswale, whatever, if they're maintaining that to the maintenance standards, and they actually get a discount on their surface water management fee. And when we do go and inspect them, if we find defects where it's not to the maintenance standard, then we basically would generate like a punch list saying these need to be done by the state in order to so you're still able to get your discount on your surface water management fee. So basically what we had to do for this, it took a lot of the same workflow from the county inspection program, except basically the inspectors weren't having to generate maintenance work orders, basically just having to do inspections, but we also needed to then use the data from Cityworks to build basically letters. And so we have letters that say you're either in compliance and it's, that's good and you're getting your discount. And then we have letters that say, okay, you weren't in compliance and here's the things you need to fix by this date, and then return this letter back to us. So basically, we used the reporting services to develop basically the same type of letters we had they were used to seeing, so it wasn't a shock for the businesses. And we were able to do that in Cityworks. There were some slight differences in how we showed the punch list, but overall, it pretty much was the same. And then we are also able kind of to batch the report generation at the end of the year when these need to be mailed out. So it was a lot easier for the office staff to compile these letters, and then everything's tracked in Cityworks. So we have another system that basically can kind of extract the data out of Cityworks, and then they can see which properties are the discount should be applied to and which ones are not going to be receiving a discount this year. And then we haven't fully automated that yet, but that's coming in the future. But it's still better than what we had. Previously, it was just an Excel spreadsheet, but the one person was kind of managing, and now it's a systematic feature inside Cityworks, and it's definitely a lot easier for us to track the compliance and see history and everything like that. So yeah, this has been an overall, Cityworks has been a big improvement for our commercial facility inspection program. And then our public-facing services, which essentially are, it's our basically service requests for the most part. It's kind of what we mainly interface with the public. Our department kind of handles surface water complaints, and that includes various types of tasks. It includes things such as for that surface water management fee, we will go out and do impervious surface measurements. So we track those inside of Cityworks. It also could be, we're tracking more of like our general technical assistance inquiries, and the water quality issues are also kind of covered in there. And then we're also using this to track like localized flooding and stuff like that when we have during storm events, and then it could be also related to our facility. So it's kind of nice to have the service request that somebody reported and then kind of see that where that went all the way through from sending out an inspector to actually what work was done to resolve that issue. So this gives us a lot more capability to kind of analyze how effective our maintenance programs are and stuff like that, to see if we're reducing the number of calls that we're getting. You know, when looking at our old data, it was kind of really hard to analyze. Like, we get this call from the same place each year, and then also, I mean, a lot of the staff who manage this might know this because they're just so familiar with it, but once they leave or retire, that information kind of goes out the door and somebody to start over again. So this is actually a really good way for us to track these problems that we've been getting reported from the public. And right now we just have a kind of a form on our webpage that emails us directly with what the issue is, but we're looking into integrating that in the future with either maybe like a 311 app or something like that. So that will be a future enhancement. And then one of the things that was nice about this is too, with some of the other agencies, we're able to share this on our kind of have an Esri web app builder map, and we can use the URL functionality inside of Cityworks that lets like other departments see this information, like of where our drainage complaints are, just in kind of an Esri map basically. And those are for like staff that don't have Cityworks, or maybe like even our public health or some other agency might want to look at this data, and they don't have to like call us to get an extract. They can kind of see it in the map using the URL functionality, which is really nice. And then, yeah, I was just going to kind of briefly, this is kind of a continuous improvement. So we're just, now that we're invested in Cityworks, we kind of have a lot of projects that we want to continue to integrate this into other applications of the county. And these are just kind of a small slice of what we're thinking and what might be done in the future. The CCTV program is definitely, that's definitely on the horizon. And that'll be a really nice thing to tie into Cityworks, because then that opens up using the operational insights and some of the other functionality that we're not quite leveraging yet, but we will be in the future. And that is the end of my presentation. And I just wanted to thank everybody for attending. And my contact information is in this slide if you'd like to reach out and contact me about anything related to stormwater and Cityworks.
Thanks so much, Nick. We do have a couple of questions that have rolled in. Are pictures stored on the Cityworks server or a separate shared storage server?
Yeah, we set up a separate storage server to kind of keep them separated. And in the future, we're kind of looking into something, hopefully integrating with, we have to kind of move all of our network servers out of our data center into cloud storage. So we're looking into using an Azure file storage in the future for those.
Awesome. And then there was one more. Are there standard attributes for water utilities?
Yes, that was actually, we're kind of actually trying to standardize those across our region, so it's easier to, basically all of our stormwater systems are interconnected just because they cross a boundary line. So we're trying to have the core attributes We have a stormwater framework database, and that kind of lists all of our core attributes that we need to collect the tile systems together, which are generally like your material size and dimensions of an asset. And I actually can share that information out too. We have a Washington Stormwater Center site that has our database that has all those fields actually in it.
That's awesome. There were a few more questions, but I will send those over to you. So great example today on streamlining workflows and combining the legacy systems. So good job with that. And we'll be moving on to the next presentation. Thanks so much. Next up, we have the City of Racine, Wisconsin. Jacob Pitch is joining us. And we will learn how the rental and commercial properties are managed using Cityworks PLL APIs. Jacob?
Hello, can I be heard?
Yes, we can hear you. And
Great.
we can see you. It's all yours.
Cool. Yeah, let's see. Do I have a, let's see if I can click over, or are you just doing the clicking? There we go. So my name is Jacob Pitch. I work for the City of Racine. I'm a programmer, database administrator, and the Cityworks admin. I've been adminning Cityworks for roughly 3 years now. So I've got a lot of good hands-on experience with it. Let's see. I don't know if I have, oh, there we go. So yeah, what I'm going to be talking about today is an application that we had developed for us using Cityworks PLL API. We haven't had a chance to use the API before. I think we had a license to kind of test it out, but we didn't really have enough time with everything going on to do the work ourselves, so we had it outsourced. And I was pleasantly surprised at how easy it was to work with it. So. Excuse me, a little congested. So we have a program in the City of Racine called the Rents Initiative. Essentially, it's a program that kind of keeps property owners responsible for their properties, whether they're rental properties or commercial. The end goal for the rents program is to ensure that renters, so people renting, they have a good good quality of renting and habitability in their house. This is because we have some problem areas in Racine that just the houses aren't really kept up as well. So the mayor's office launched this initiative to kind of help counter that and to keep buildings and homes in good repair for renters. It opens up a direct line of contact between us, the city, and whoever is in charge of the property. So whether it's a commercial property or a rental, there's an owner, obviously, where we send any if there's any code enforcement issues to. But this also enables them to give us their contact. So if they have somebody that's taking care of the property, we can just get directly with them if we have any issues. So this is the front-facing. This is not. People asked whether I was using public access or not, but we found that this was just a little bit more customizable to do it this way and use the API. So essentially, somebody gets a letter or they get a notification that they need to register their website, or I'm sorry, register their property. So they'll start here. They can enter their contact name, just kind of the normal stuff that you'd expect. And then the next slide, after you enter your application information, so whoever's applying for the permit, then we've got the search address. So that comes from a view from ArcGIS. It also does a PLL API call to see if there's already a case registered in Cityworks in our system. If there is, then you get an error message. And if not, then it just knows, like, as you can see right there, the property registration type is the initial registration because the PLL did a call and it didn't find, or the API did a call and it didn't find anything. So let's go on. So the API uses, we have it adds fees, it adds payment, it adds notes, and it results some tasks. So this is the workflow that we use. You can see the rents registration type. So there's 3 different types. There's by a registration by person, by entity, or by trust or life estate. And then whether or not it's commercial or rental, we just have it as a result code. The reason we did it that way instead of putting it in case data or anything like that is just it's a lot easier to search. So for reporting purposes, we can just pull a report, hit that task, and then just select all the codes that the result codes. So that gives us an idea of which types of registrations we have rolling in. There's also just a couple review tasks, and then a registration complete task. And I'll skip to the next one here. Oh, maybe I didn't. I think I forgot that. So we have a registration complete task, and what the website does, if we go back a couple slides, right here. So when you search for an address, so for this example, 122 Echo Lane, the API does a call to see if there's a case. If there is a case, then it'll let you know here. And if the case is to the point where, too far, sorry. The case is to the point where the registration complete is marked as yes, then the API will complete another task, and it basically just reinserts that workflow. So if somebody needs to come and make a modification after they've already registered, they can do that right on the website. So yeah, we've had just about 6,000 people register so far. We sent out about 12,000 letters to see if just for potential properties. The way we checked that was to see if the owner address is different than the parcel location itself. So if it was different, then we could kind of infer that it might be a rental or something like that. We encourage people to register with coupons. So they're just coupons for appliances like refrigerators, microwaves, and stuff they can drop off for free at the recycling center that we have. We also, in the letters that I mentioned before, we did a little bit of a social experiment to see whether we write to the person with an incentive to say, hey, you get this free coupon if you register your property with us. And then the other version of that letter was to say, if you don't register by October 10th, you might get a fine of $500 or whatever it is. So yeah, we're still tracking that one, but I thought that was an interesting little concept here. I think I went through that really quickly, a little bit faster than I thought I was going to, but I think that's about it.
That was awesome. You caught us up. We were a little bit behind with our technical difficulties, so thank you for
glad
that.
I could overpromise and underdeliver.
That's right. You did great. So I love that. I loved how the city of Racine has leveraged Cityworks PLL API to track rental and the commercial property. So a couple of questions. We'll go ahead and ask those since we have a few more minutes. What does the city gain from forcing property registrations?
So the city gains, well, for one, a better communication with property, not even owners, but managers. So a lot of the time there's people from out of town that own like 100 properties. It's really hard to get them to cure any code enforcement orders we have against them. So whether it's buildings in disrepair, or the grass is too tall, or there's solid waste on the property. So getting people to register so that we can contact their contact person that they want us to talk to, it really helps with getting that stuff taken care of a lot faster. And in turn, the property values go up because everything's good and in good repair.
That's great. One more, why do property owners need to register their properties in the first place? And I think you might have already answered that slightly.
Yeah, slightly. So it's just the whole getting stuff taken care of. So they benefit because if everyone else is picking up their properties around them and everything's in good repair and everything looks good, then the property value goes up and everyone's happy.
That's great. We have a few more questions that have rolled in. We're going to send those over to you at the end of this, and you
Okay.
can reach out to those folks. And with that, we are going to thank you, Jacob, so much.
Thank you very much.
To move into a quick 2-minute break. Welcome back. Hope you were able to grab a drink and run and do what you needed to do real quick, answer a few emails. We have a poll before we have, actually Matt, if you're there, we have Matt Harmon. He's with us with Cityworks. A lot of you know him already. And we actually threw in a poll at the last minute. So we're going to go ahead and launch that poll if I can get some feedback from you all, and then I'll have Matt speak to that poll if he doesn't mind. A few more seconds. Do you currently use custom ArcGIS pop-ups in Cityworks? Okay, let's launch those results. Ah, Matt, do you see those results? I don't know if you're unmuted.
There we go. All right, I was getting muted. Perfect. Yes, I can see these results. And this was kind of what we were hoping for in the little tips and tricks that we'll show today. This is something that's simple to do, but also can add an impact and help your deployments, help your end users be a little bit more efficient as they're interacting with their assets in the GIS. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Oh, go ahead,
Matt's
Cindy.
going to do, he's going to do a live demo for us. So we're going to turn the presentation rights over to him for a minute. We'll go ahead and let you take it from here.
All right. Let's see here. Share my screen. All right, perfect. Yes, the live demo is always scary, but I think I can pull it off. I think this will be good. So I'm logged into Cityworks Respond. Okay, so this is the latest version of Respond. And what I'm showing you will work in Office as well. But since we're interacting with web maps and Respond and so forth, I just kind of like the layout here. And it's exciting to see what is new, what some of you may not be as familiar with in the Respond layout and so forth. So all I'm going to do is just zoom in. Okay, so this is just a web map. I'm going to come to my legend and I'm going to turn on a couple of layers. Okay. And so when we're interacting with layers, if I click on one of my pipes, okay, so this is the traditional pop-up that you get in Cityworks. It's a table with, you know, your attributes, and the attribute organization can be set up in Designer, but a lot of times people don't realize that as well. And so it's kind of just organized however it happens to be in the GIS table. And that may not be as efficient, right? It might be harder to find a critical attribute and so forth just using the standard pop-up. If I look at my fire hydrants, okay, this pop-up has been customized. So all I did, and I'm going to show you this in a minute, is I went into my web map settings, created a custom pop-up, and look at how much more meaningful this information is, the attributes, how better they're organized than in the standard. Okay, and what's great about this is all Cityworks is doing is we're just inheriting the pop-up settings from your web map on each one of your feature layers. Okay, I want to point out this remaining life calculation. Okay, so I've got basic attributes, asset performance, life cycle details. I put this one in green. You can color change these. And the reason I'm showing this one is because this is an arcade expression. So I'm doing a real-time calculation when the pop-up launches on the age of the asset, the remaining life of the asset. And again, I'll show you how you set this up in a second. Okay, the other thing we can do is we can add asset images, have those available right here. All of your attachments on the asset that get uploaded to the asset from collector or other means is also available here. So I've got just a standard hydrant reference, it's a PDF. I can click on that and it's going to download that PDF, and I can interact with maybe a standard operating procedure or other document specific to that asset. Okay, so really cool. I really like custom pop-ups. It made things much easier for me as I use Cityworks. We show this a lot when we're presenting Cityworks to new customers. Kind of a cool thing that you can take advantage of. One other thing that you can do, so right here I've got a dynamic link. So again, it calculates on when I click the pop-up, I can click the link, and in a new tab, this is going to take me to the Cityworks asset details page in Respond. Okay, and this is where I can get real, keyed in on my asset information, my Cityworks specific asset details and costs, and then of course the work history on that particular asset. So again, just linking things together, having things seamlessly available in right at your fingertips in just a simple pop-up is really nice. Okay, let's come back to my main tab here, and I just want to show a couple different examples. So I'm going to come down to my parcels. We'll turn this on. For our PLL users, the parcel, the land information data is really critical. And so this is just another view of the way I've set up a custom pop-up. Okay, I've got images from the house. This is more of a tabular view of the parcel details, right? I come down to my Walmart. Okay, real meaningful stuff, easy to interact with. All right, and so think about that. And how this might impact your end users and how they might be a little bit more efficient by having custom pop-ups. Okay, so now let's look and see how we do this. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop open my portal for ArcGIS. Okay, and we're going to kind of go full screen here. So I've got some side-by-side view, and I can show you how you do this. So I'm going to open up my web map. So this is going to be the same. So in Portal for ArcGIS or ArcGIS Online, this is going to be the same web map that I've assigned my user over here in Cityworks. So left-hand side, ArcGIS view of the web map, right-hand side, the Cityworks view of the web map. Okay, and you can see I'm in the same area, okay, right over that Walmart. Okay, and I'm just going to zoom in. We'll turn on our fire hydrants. Okay, and all I'm doing is if I come to the little menu here, I go into configure pop-up. Okay, and you've got this option for display. So the default is a list of filled attributes. So this is that table that everyone already has. Okay, so that's the one that we showed on the water main, right? We'll just kind of scroll through here. So this one right here. Okay, if you change this to a custom attribute display, you get a lot of nice tools, all right? You can come in and just start adding your own layout for your attributes. And then even more, you can add some HTML code to this. Okay, so HTML, if you want to get really, creating hyperlinks and other ways to create a custom pop-up, okay? If you're not familiar with Arcade, so Arcade is a way that you can create your own, do some math and other things inside of your pop-up. So this is where I'm calculating the difference between my install date of the asset and the current date to get the age of the asset and the remaining useful life of it. Okay, so Arcade's another really nice tool. All right, and so that's all you do. So all you do is just come in to, so what I want to do is I want to create a new one. I'm going to do it on my sewer manhole so you can see this. So my default sewer manhole, okay, as they draw here, this is just the standard ArcGIS pop-up. We're going to go switch that real quick, configure our pop-up. Okay, and again, instead of showing a list, I want to do a custom attribute display. I'm going to configure that, and then I can just start typing asset ID. And then over here is where I add in those fields, so that placeholder. Okay, so maybe we'll give this bold, right? And maybe we'll do diameter. Okay, we'll bold that. We'll go find diameter. Okay, and so it's just a really nice way to organize your assets in a little bit different way to help your end users be more efficient. Okay. We'll click that, and now I have a custom attribute display here. Okay, and this is what's great about GIS-centric and Cityworks and real-time interaction with your GIS. As I make the change over here, all I need to do is refresh my Cityworks environment, and that will reload the web map. Okay, we'll go to the map view. And then here I've got, right, my custom attribute display, asset diameter. Okay, that's really it. So just a real quick tip and trick. It sounds like none of you are doing this right now. Some of you may not have known you were able to do it, but just go ahead and play with it. I know, you know, if it's like anything else we put out there, our customers will see this, they'll leverage it and turn it into something really cool. For resources, just Google ArcGIS custom pop-ups. Esri has a whole bunch of case studies and how-to guides on how you can set up some really nice dynamic pop-ups. There you go, Cindy.
Nice demo, Matt. I think that's going to be super helpful to a lot of our viewers today. So that's awesome. We do have a couple of questions here. Will this only work with ArcGIS portal online?
So it will work with Arc. Well, to be honest, I don't know. I haven't tested it in ArcGIS Enterprise, okay, but it really is in the web map. All right, so I think the web map is key, but go ahead and test it and just, you know, see what happens. So good question.
Okay, one more. Are there standard attributes for water utilities?
So there are. So Esri actually has a data model that a lot of our customers use that includes standard attribute fields. But then the beauty of it is you can create your own, right? And so every organization can add attributes to collect data that is important to them. And so if you start with, you know, the Esri utility network or local government information data model, those are things you can kind of research and then from there customize it how you want.
That's great. There's a few more questions. We'll address those and send those over to you, Matt, so you can reach out to those folks that we missed.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you so much. That was really great.
Yeah, you bet.
Next up, we have Chris Fisher. He is from Greater Rockford Airport Authority, Illinois. He will be talking with us right from the command center there about streamlining Part 139 certificate inspections and a few more things related to that. So looking forward to this, Chris.
Yeah, basically our whole process of record keeping and how we make the FAA happy, among other agencies here. So today, like Cindy said, thank you for introducing me. I'm Chris Fisher. I am an operations specialist here at the Rockford Airport. I've been here for 5 years. Basically an operations specialist. We do all the regulatory inspections for the FAA, and we maintain our compliance with the FAA, TSA, and USDA. And using Cityworks, we're able to do that very efficiently and streamline it, streamline all our inspections here. So, as I said, Rockford Airport, we are a 139 certificated airport, which means we're required to maintain our documentation and showing our compliance to various agencies like the FAA, TSA, USDA, to name a few. Using Cityworks, we could easily produce, organize, and digitally deliver these documents in a streamlined fashion. Cityworks is already certified with the FAA, and Rockford is one of only a few airports to hold the certification. With COVID, we, like many of you, had a wrench thrown into our day-to-day operations, social distancing, changing of schedules and everything. Cityworks has played a major role in that, just keeping everybody up to date with what has happened in the last couple days or last month or whatever, without needing to be on site or, you know, needing to interact with people in person. Oh, and here's our opening screen. So here is our, here we go, our logbook. So our logbook is basically configured from the service request portion of Cityworks. It's our digital logbook for all of our inspections or logbook entries is what we call them. So when you log into Cityworks, this will be your first screen that pops up, and it'll show you the last 10 days of activity. And so when you log in, you're immediately up to date with the latest and greatest what's going on around the airport. and you could access whatever you are currently working on. Below that, we are able to track our NOTAMs. So NOTAMs, if you don't know, are notices to airmen. It's something that the FAA requires us to issue and keep track of and just maintain. So having that at our fingertips is very, very beneficial to us. This is one of our logbook entries. It's a wildlife strike. We have 37 different 37 different logbook entries in general. Most of our logbook entries utilize custom fields on the right side here, which we can track individually by the different subject matter there. For those that are familiar with the FAA strike database, you'll notice that these fields are pretty similar to the FAA's website, their strike database. And we also, underneath the comments, will add the strike database, or the strike, actually, the report number for the FAA. We could also save the PDF strike report from the FAA website and attach it to this document, which we do. So here is, I mentioned the USDA. So we have bald eagles here at the Rockford Airport. We're located right next to a pretty big river. So our bald eagle activity is we have bald eagles. So in order to harass a bald eagle, we have to pull a permit. And in doing so, we have to show them that we actually have the activity to have that permit. So this date range is about 9 months that I pulled here, and it just shows all the bald eagle activity and where they were, the dates that were there, and we could easily email this off to get our permit renewed. And again, this is our wildlife activity here throughout the airport. It's just another tab that we can easily access and see the latest activity on the airfield. We could also print this off or even just submit it over to the FAA before they get here, so they can see that we are tracking it and we are following our wildlife mitigation plan. Work orders. So we have 4 different types of work orders that we will issue. On the top left is our Part 139 work orders. These are the FAA discrepancies. And they're broken down into 2 categories, ones that are ready to inspect and ones that are currently being worked on or on hold. Our top right tab there is going to be our non-139 work orders. These are preventative maintenance, building maintenance, airfield mowing, things that we still needed to get done, but the FAA doesn't care so much about. Bottom left is our recurring work orders. We have 12 of these currently. Then this is going to be another preventative maintenance thing that we could automatically, the system automatically issues these work orders weekly, monthly, bi-weekly, annually, and we can set that how we want it and submit it to who we want it. And it's just a good way to make sure things are getting done properly and in a timely fashion. And then lastly, we have on the bottom right our GIS work orders. These are for our asset management, and we document these, and for construction and changes out on the airfield, which are always taking place. We could log things that need to get updated that way. So here's our map. I don't have any of the assets turned on for it right now. All I'm showing you here is the work orders. But we've made it uniform to everybody, so everybody sees the same screen here, the same figures. So the red circles are going to be our Part 139 work orders. There are FAA discrepancies. When those are ready to inspect, we change those to green. And then the blue diamonds, those are our non-139, non-139 discrepancies. Those will turn yellow when they're ready to be inspected. And then the light blue squares are our GIS work orders. So this is something that we've just implemented. This is basically a digital blueprint of our terminal. So each room is individually selectable. We're able to issue work orders to specific areas of the terminal. We can also select the equipment, such as like the baggage belts or the elevators, the escalators, and issue work orders individually on those. We're working on adding more features, such as the jet bridges and the baggage scales, all that stuff. We just have to add individually, and we're just working on getting all that stuff in there. So work assignments. When our maintenance employees come into the building, there's a monitor that's sitting over top of the break room, and this screen is always up 24/7. And so maintenance employee can come into work, look at the monitor, and see exactly what their day is going to consist of. On the left side, we have our Part 139 work orders, and on the right is our non-139 work orders. So they can see these, punch in, and then they can go to their computer and open up their individual account and see their My Work tab. So everybody has a personalized My Work tab, which if a work order is issued, management will divvy out the work orders to various employees. This particular one is a spall repair, and it was issued by one of our operations specialists, Isaac. So if there's any questions that this maintenance employee has, he can go to Isaac and ask him about it. He could open up the 5515, which is the work order number, and he'll be able to see location, a picture if we attach it, comments, and basic information about what they're going to be doing to repair that. So this is our bread and butter. This is what we worked a long time on. This is our actual FAA certified report. This is an automatic report. It runs daily at the end of the day, and it tracks everything about what the FAA wants to see in terms of each day. They want to see 365 of these at the end of the year when they come in for their annual inspection. So it tracks who was on shift, right? The top three names there, who was on shift, who did the airfield inspections, followed by the outstanding work orders on the airfield. What are the discrepancies on the airfield right now? And that shows it right there. Special inspections, which are typically our airport perimeter inspections, followed by the wildlife activity that we had that day, work orders that were issued that day, or work orders that were closed that day, followed by what I mentioned before is our NOTAMs, our active NOTAMs for that day. These reports are checked regularly, and then they're saved to a database to where they can be easily grabbed and sent off whenever the FAA asks for them or during our cert inspection. So here's another report that we can run. This is an on-demand report. This is our training. This is how we log our training. So right now we have our old system that we're using, and we are dual logging it into Cityworks prior to it getting certified. So here we have on the left side is our operations staff, followed by, there's multiple pages below this, but there's our maintenance staff. And we each have different requirements that we have to fill throughout the year. So on the right side is our fuelers. And so they're required to do their safety training and their hands-on training. As you can see, there's different colored dates. The green dates mean that training is about to expire within 90 days. So they have to get recertified. If it's red, which you see there, that means that person is expired. They cannot fuel until they get recertified. So it's a very quick and easy way for us to tell who's certified, who's not certified, where we're at in terms of training. And so we're in the process of getting this certified, like I said. Another inspection report that we're doing is an on-demand report. This one is for our fueling services on the airport. This could be site fuel sites, fuel tanks and pumps, or fuel trucks. So again, we're dual logging this so that we can submit this to the FAA and get that approved. TSA, we have regular TSA audits. They'll come and see, make sure that we're doing what we said we're going to be doing. So on the left, we have about a week worth of perimeter inspections, times that they were done, dates that they were done. On the top right, we have our TSA security audit. And this is our, ID challenges, gate lock inspections. And then at the terminal, we have to do prohibited items inspections, making sure things that shouldn't be in the terminal are not in the terminal. We also have several other reports, aircraft parking, charter flights, and diverted flights. Those are mainly internally used. We can keep record of, internal billing and record keeping, just plain record keeping for those. We also do logbook. We can print off logbook reports and work order reports. So with the metrics page, we're able to track logbook entries, how many logbook entries for, for which type. So airfield related work order or airfield related entries are on the top left. And then our NOTAM related entries are in the top right, NOTAM and security related entries. And the bottom just tracks our work orders by type. And then here we have our KPI. So using our KPI, we can see the time it takes to remedy a work order or a group of work orders. Just from here, we can see in the top left area there, it took us a little bit longer to get our paint markings remedied. Now we can look at this and say, well, why? Why did that happen? We can click on these work orders and see when they were issued. If they were issued in the fall, we know that maybe it was getting too cold to paint, and 6 months later, we got them done. So using this KPI, we can see if there's an issue and why, or if there's not an issue and here's why. So it just gives us an extra tool in our pocket when we go, to maybe add staffing or reallocate some staffing somewhere else. And it's just an extra tool in our pocket to see what is exactly is going on. So coming up next, as far as our growth, like I said, we're going to be expanding the use of our terminal and what we can do with that digital blueprint. We're also going to be adding other buildings and other internal facilities that we have. I didn't speak of this at all, but our remote used to be an employee cell phone. So right now, when those employees come into work, they have to log into a computer to see what's going on with their day, right? With their My Work tab. So using their cell phones, they'll be able to log in and access their My Work tab out on the field. They won't have to be off the field. They'll be able to go out in the field, find the work order, add their equipment, labor, materials. They'll be able to mark the work order ready for inspection. And then if they have another work order to jump to, they could jump right to it. They don't have to come back here and go back and forth. It's just very easy access for them. We're working on automating more reports. We'd like much like our 139 report, how it's run automatically every day. And we're also working towards additional FAA certified reports, like I mentioned, with our training records and there was one other one, the training records, and then our fueling records. So right now we're in the data collection process of that. And so once we get enough data, we can submit that over to the FAA, and they could suggest their changes and go from there. So, I'll hand it back over to Cindy here.
Thanks, Chris. That was awesome. It is actually amazing to learn about how many different things are logged each day at the airport. And also, we probably need to watch for those eagles.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but it's a good. Yeah, it's very helpful to see on paper right in front of you, where our hotspots are. Right, if we have a wildlife issue and there's a hotspot at this location, then we need to pay more attention to that area. But it just all around, it just helps us with our wildlife mitigation and makes everything safer and more efficient, and just all around just helped us out a lot. So.
That's really great. Thanks for that information. We do have a few questions here. Let's see. How are you deploying your reports? Right in Cityworks or some other method?
Yeah, so we actually just changed that around. So we have a reporting tab that we could actually open up the reporting tab, and we can export that into a PDF file. And then we'll just save it right onto our server, and then we can collect them right on our server. Once the FAA asks us for them, then we can just ship them right off in an email right to them.
That's super. And let's see, for remote use, are you planning to use Cityworks mobile app or something else?
Yeah. So right now, I believe, and I can follow up with this further. I believe the Cityworks app is still being tested out at another airport. And so we have some growing to do here. We're putting a new server in and everything. So once that new server gets in, we'll be immediately dispatching that app. But yeah, to answer your question, we are going to be planning to use that app.
That's great. Really great. Yep. Okay, I think we're going to move on. Thank you so much for this information. We have a few other questions that have rolled in. I will send those over your way and you can follow up.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you again.
See ya.
Next up, we've got the City of Greene, Ohio. Mike Elkins and Christy Lingenfelter will talk about making right-of-way permits paperless within Cityworks, the Cityworks PLL. So Mike and Christy, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to you.
Well, thank you, Cindy, very much. A lot of great stuff already presented today, and thanks for joining us, Christy and I, as we talk a little bit about going away from paper and going into Cityworks. So let's talk a little bit about the City of Greene, and Christy is actually controlling the screen. There you go. Go back the other way. There we go. A little bit about the City of Greene. We are affectionately known as UCLA, and that is not California. That is Upper Canton and Lower Akron. We're a suburb located about 50 miles south of Cleveland, and we're bisected by a major interstate, I-77, which has really been key to the city's economic development and economic success over the last 25 plus years. We're a city of about 26,000 people in a land area of 33.5 square miles. Relatively, we are a young city. We didn't become a city until 1992, so we're certainly still growing. However, as we became a city in 92, back in the Stone Age, if you will, everything was paper, paper, paper. And much of our right-of-way permits was done in paper and done more so in triplicates. It was very difficult to track 200 to 300 right-of-way permits each and every year. And that character on the right of your screen almost looks like our engineering tech reviewing all of the right-of-way permits that would come in. So let's take a quick look at the workflow of the paper process. So our customer would come in and they would meet with our zoning office, and they would complete the application, and they would submit a site plan. And those plans were then made in triplicate. The plans would then go up to the engineering office, where an engineering tech would review the application, review the site plan, determine whether or not a MOT would also be required for that particular application. Upon review, final review of the engineering tech, it would then go to the city engineer. The engineer would look at the application, the site plan, and then determine the bond for that particular permit. And Christy's going to talk about how that bond is established in just a few minutes. From the engineer's desk, it then goes to the service director's desk. And that's by our code. The service director has to review it and then approve it. And then it goes back to the engineering office, where the applicant is notified that they can begin work. Work begins, the inspections are done in the field. Eventually, the project is completed, the case is closed out, and it's filed away in the zoning office. So there's high risk and high probability of loss of paperwork with an application and site plan moving between zoning, engineering, service, back to engineering, back to the zoning office. So Cityworks comes on the scene in 2017, and from here, I'm actually going to throw it over to Chrissy as she talks about the new process and how we implemented this, this new system.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. So we implemented Cityworks PLL in 2017, and that was directly followed with an AMS implementation. So 2017 was a fun year for us, but we kind of went all in on Cityworks and decided this was the platform we were going to use, get several departments, on the same platform, looking at the same information. So the timing came together in 2017, and we embarked on our journey. So before we began our implementation, we chose GIS Inc. as our implementation partner, and they were a vital member of our team for the successful implementation. As we began thinking about our PLL implementation, it was we were bringing it in for our zoning permits, of course, but the big elephant in the room in the city was this right-of-way permit process. Everyone knew it was inefficient and had an extreme room, a large room for error, right? So Previously, the right-of-way permits were not even being tracked in our previous zoning permit application. They were being tracked on an Excel spreadsheet. Please don't hold that against us. It's what they were doing, and it worked for them for the time being. But it really proved to not be working, because applicants would call into the zoning office and say, you know, where's my right-of-way permit? I'm ready to start work. And our zoning assistant wasn't able to answer the question because she didn't know where those physical pieces of paper were located in the building. So she'd have to call around and figure out, you know, where it was, and then call the applicant back. I'm sorry, the phone is ringing. So, you know, it was poor customer service, and it was inefficient. So during our implementation, we brought the three departments together. We brought the service department together, the engineering department together, and the zoning department. And we all sat down at a table with GIS Inc. We talked about our workflow. We tried to streamline our workflow internally as best we could. And you know, what's really important here to note is GIS Inc. didn't want to change our workflow, put it into Cityworks, because they knew Cityworks could work for whatever workflow we came up with. So what GIS Inc. was able to do was translate our workflow into the Cityworks vocabulary, and that was really vital for us. And it was a really important step, so that, you know, all of the end users were aware of not only are we being very cautious not to change the workflow or how we needed to do things, but that we were going to set up Cityworks to make it successful for them. So this is a screenshot. I know it's hard to see, but this is a shot of the inbox for our zoning assistant. So she can actually, we set up the inbox so she can track where each permit was throughout the process. So, you know, each of those panels is a separate search, and you know, showing where in the process each permit was. So now when she gets the phone calls, she can open up Cityworks. It's probably already open on her desktop, but she can look directly in that panel or in those panels and find that address, and she can say, oh, well, it's on the service director's desk right now. You should be hearing back from us in a day or two. So, you know, it's really improved our customer service in that regard. And now this is a screenshot of just a typical permit case in PLL. This may be very familiar to some of you, which is great. Some of you may have never seen it because you're not PLL users. So that's why I wanted to include it. But this is you know, everything is available. All the information related to that permit is available in the screen. On the upper left-hand corner is the location information. We also added in the parcel number, the property owner information, if it's in a subdivision, what the zoning district is. But on the right-hand side, you'll see there the workflow, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. But right underneath that are the attachments. And this has been really a huge win for us. You know, we're not doing anything fancy here. This is pretty standard PLL operation, but I just wanted to showcase this story because it is it's basic, right? We're not doing anything fancy, but even basic Cityworks usage has been, you know, a tremendous success for us, and it really helped us bring Cityworks into the city successfully. But those attachments are a big part of that, because previously, when the right-of-way permits, the paper copies, were being sent around from desk to desk, as Mike said, the site plan was attached. So, you know, these packets per permit could get pretty thick, and you know, it's hard to track where everything is, but also it takes up a lot of room on people's desks. These stacks of paper, you know, all stapled together, and it was just a nightmare. I'd walk by our engineering tech reviewers or our engineering tech's desk, who was the main reviewer, and there would literally be stacks of paper like 2 feet high of just right-of-way permits. And he literally would get buried with these things. So he has really appreciated Cityworks, and especially that the attachments are right there. And then below that, I know this one's especially hard to see, but there's a panel there called Instrument, and that's where we track our right-of-way bonds. So our code established that right-of-way permits have to be bonded. So the applicant has to post a bond in order to get a permit. And again, I'm embarrassed to say this, but our zoning division was tracking the bonds on an Excel spreadsheet. It was a completely separate spreadsheet from the right-of-way permit spreadsheet. So it was hard to track, hard to keep up with who has an open bond, whose bond has been closed. It was a nightmare. Now we have all of that bond information. It's applicant specific bond information of the amount, if it has been posted and if it has been closed and released. So again, having it there all within, it's almost a one-stop shop. All that information is in one place. So here is a close-up of that workflow. So you can kind of see, how we put those steps in, just as Mike pointed out before. So, it starts with the application intake, it goes to the engineer tech for review, and he really does the technical review, and then it goes to the city engineer. And the city engineer, he comes up with that bond amount. So he makes his notes in there, and then it gets pushed off to the service director, who by code has to be the approver. But she's really leaning on the review that engineering has already done. And if she has any questions, she can follow up with them. But then she approves it, and then it's sent back down. It pops up in the zoning inbox so that they can contact the applicant to come pick up the permit. So, and then at that point, it goes straight into the inspection phase. And we built the inspection into this workflow. You can see on that one step that has the 2 little yellow sticky notes almost, that opens up a checklist. It's the inspection checklist. So our inspectors now, they take an iPad right out into the field, and they perform their inspection in the field, make notes, write in that permit case. So again, everything's in one place. And once they pass inspection, then the bond can be released and the permit is closed. So again, it's nothing fancy, but it really brought a new way of doing business to the city. So I'm going to let Mike talk about the successes that we've seen.
Thank you, Chrissy. What would a great Cityworks story be without sharing the success of it? Obviously, as we've talked about, much less paper is floating around the office, and what's not on the bullet points that you see in front of us is also there's less anxiety in the office trying to track down site plans and perhaps applications that might have been misplaced. And Chrissy already talked about it, but one of the beauties about this process now is that anyone internally that has access into Cityworks and access into PLL can open up a case and check the status of that case and communicate that effectively to the applicant, that being our customer. And again, the permit case can go directly to inspection. It's brought 3 departments together on a single platform. Chrissy talked about the multiple Excel spreadsheets that we had been using for years. Those are gone. Thanks to Cityworks, they're gone. We don't use them anymore. It's a one-stop shop for all of our right-of-way permits, inspection, and application process. But most importantly, for the city of Greene, that this new process that we've implemented using PLL has improved the review time, and most importantly is the customer service. Our customers are very pleased. There's not a long wait time in terms of waiting for an approval for their application, or if there's any questions, how long do I have to wait to hear from the city. So that has really improved the relationship between the city and its customers. So at this time, I'm going to throw it Chrissy, back to you. By the way, Chrissy and I are partners on the Cityworks team. I manage, I do a lot of the AMS work, and Chrissy does a lot of the PLL and AMS. So it's we're a tag team here at the city.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'll throw it back to you, Chrissy, for questions.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, you too. That was awesome. I bet you are happy to get out of the management of the spreadsheet process.
Yes.
Cutting down review time there is a pretty great example. So a couple of questions here. What impact has the Cityworks PLL process had on the quality of the initial application review?
Yeah, so as Mike alluded to, the review time has decreased, which is huge. You know, the reviewer is not taking time to you know, physically walk a packet of paper across the building, you know, for the next step. Everything is being done digitally. So as soon as one person is done with one step, they just click the button and it goes on to the next step. So, and I feel like it has increased the quality of the review also, because like I said, those attachments are right there and anyone can open them up along the way. And, you know, it's everything in one place, as I said a few times now, but it truly is, you're not mixing up, you know, site plans with different applications, you know, haphazardly, you know, in the paper shuffle. So I really think the accuracy has improved as well as the quality of the review. Yeah.
That's great. Another question, are you using the mobile app in the field on the iPad? Sorry.
Right, they are using the Cityworks desktop version in the iPad. One of our goals this year was to get Respond stood up because there were some issues with the mobile app, I think especially with PLL, so we were anxious to get Respond stood up this year, and then COVID happened, so it's kind of gotten pushed back, but we're testing that one off again. So hopefully we can get Respond in the hands of the inspectors, because I really think that will improve that experience for them.
That's great. All right. Well, thank you so much again for that presentation and ideas there on ways Cityworks can help. That was great.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you both. We have the next group are going to close us out here on this session. We have a poll though that we've thrown in there, and Darren, this is actually going to go to your presentation, so I want you to pay attention and probably have you speak to that just a little bit. So Paige, if you don't mind kicking that off, are you currently using sensor data in your organization? Give you a few seconds. Okay, let's see what those results are. Wow.
Yeah.
There you go. So
that's good. The majority of people understand what a SCADA is, so.
That's really good. So we've got Darren Rosnick here. He's from the city of Akron, Ohio. And he's going to be talking to us about SCADA and Cityworks and the relationship between the two. So we will go ahead and turn the time over to you.
All right, thank you. So it appears the majority of everybody in here understands what a SCADA is, but those that do not, hopefully I'll at least enlighten you of a high level of what SCADA is. So what I'm going to be talking about during this presentation is really the city of Akron's, we'll say, our path to integrating our work order management, our SCADA, our GIS, and really bringing that real-time strategy to our PM process at the city of Akron. So if you were at the UC, the last live one, last December, you saw me speak a little bit about this, as well as some of the topic I'll speak about that goes into this, which is how the city of Akron also deals with our vertical assets at our plants and our distribution system, since that is always a
hot button topic for city users that are integrating their plants or their storeroom activities into Cityworks. So this is a short Cityworks conference here. So I'll cover what the city of Akron does with Cityworks. We are the 5th largest city in Ohio. We are the county seat of Summit County. We are just to the north of Greene, who you just previously heard from, and we are about an hour south of Cleveland in Ohio. As far as Cityworks in the city of Akron, we have standardized across our entire service department as Cityworks being the platform of choice for work order management, service requests, inspections, and PLL. So what you see there, we have been in Cityworks since 2015. We converted from our previous CMMS. Hopefully, we will finalize our complete takeover of the previous CMMS in 2021 by removing it from our plans and permits process and doing a full integration of plans and permits with OnBase and Cityworks portal and then Public Works storeroom. So what's not on there is it is also our platform for 311. So to put that in perspective, the total amount of service requests that the city of Akron has in our Cityworks instance is 1,100,159. We have 350,000 work orders in our current Cityworks instance, and we have 35,000 PLL cases in our instance. As I said, we implemented in 2015, and we average somewhere around 80 to 95,000 service requests in our instance every year. So with that, we'll get to the purpose of this, which is the idea of how to bring real-time SCADA data and make important decisions from a PM maintenance standpoint in your work order management. So for those that do not know what a SCADA system is, it is basically your control system for automation or for service tags within a plant or a distribution system on items such as pumps, HVAC systems, electrical systems, or flow monitoring on the sewer side, CSO overflow monitoring. And this system does real-time analytics within itself, creates tags for SOPs on those devices, how many hours of runtime, things like that. So a SCADA system in a normal standpoint, so anybody who really deals with it, it's kind of a black box in the corner. People who deal with the SCADA don't like most of the network to touch it. They don't really like any other systems to integrate with it. It needs to be completely secure, and that's understandable because it runs your operations at plants or in your distribution system. So you don't really want interference from any other system. So the city of Akron, partnering with Gray Matter, who is our strategic partner for our current SCADA system, which is GE iFix, and they have a product called GE Proficiency Workflow Manager. And we took a look at this and decided that, this was our opportunity to really take a new leap forward. We don't need to push using Cityworks anymore. We're pushing it. We have a ton of SRs, work orders. We have these processes running every day. What we need to do now is start kind of changing our mindset on how we leverage all these other systems to make ourselves more efficient. So we looked at SCADA and we looked at this proficiency system, and we decided we really wanted to figure out how to use this system to leverage our SCADA system into Cityworks to make real-time operational decision-making on that. So high level, for those that really know about SCADA, we are leveraging the historian, which we have multiple domains within our network. The SCADA is on its own domain, it is secure, so we cannot access that. So what we do is we replicate our SCADA in the historian on our normal network. So everything that happens in the SCADA creates those same tags in our standard network, and from there we access that within the proficiency workflow manager. So what we're doing is what this slide shows. We want to take real-time conditions
our asset data in the GIS, and we want to be able to combine those with Cityworks to really start making a live PM process of managing our assets within Cityworks. So this slide here is to speak to how we deal with our vertical assets and our spatial and non-spatial assets on the GIS. I'm going through all this very fast, so I'm sure if anybody has questions, you can email me. But the city of Akron and anybody who's really dealt with me knows that I like simplicity in all matters. As a municipality, anything complex always becomes a problem, always costs us more money, and eventually the knowledge base goes away. So when we design, and I try and be involved in those designs, we try and flatten it as much as possible. So for our non-spatial assets in both our distribution system and in the plants, we went with a flat model. The hierarchy is dealt with through categories within the flat model. And then to serve it through this process, what I did was create spatial attribute and spatial tables out of non-spatial tables, and created query layer views inside SQL, tagging the hierarchy with the XY for each individual non-spatial asset. And the reason we went through this is we also, on the SCADA side, tagged each SCADA tag that we wanted to create a work order from with the actual asset ID. So when a SCADA tag is generated for a pump running 1,000 hours, it knows that 1,000 hours ran on this pump and its asset ID is this. So it can tag it into the GIS, which then ties it to Cityworks. This picture here is actually part of the workflow manager that we use to build this connection from the SCADA to Cityworks. And as you can see, when you're looking into it, it has its own hierarchy. So if you can follow the top of this, if it's not too small, you have water, water plant grounds, and then you have the different work order templates. And then in the bottom part of the screen, you actually fill in those work order templates. And this is really building that object-oriented workflow that this system runs off of. The next screen shows you the inner workings of that to kind of show you that it is an object model. So if you've used anything along the lines of like GeoCortex reporting or object models, this is very familiar, as well as some other integration tools that you've used in the past, SSIS. So we leveraged gray matter to help us start building these workflows, and we built them in a simplistic manner. So in Cityworks, when you look at the work order templates that we used a very generic work order template for these PMs. So that way we didn't have to create 70 different templates for each SCADA tag, and we control the way we define these templates in Cityworks by the information that is sent by the SCADA tag and where it fills out on that template. So instead of making a chemical vault overflow work order, we created a water treatment plant corrective maintenance work order, which is triggered by a SCADA tag inside GEI fix. And the way we differentiate what it's from and for is through the sub-description that we send. So we send a very specific sub-description. This is a chemical vault inspection. So we have a corrective maintenance work order that is a chemical vault inspection in the sub-description. So now we have all reporting tools that we need. And the rest of the information that is supplied on the work order is to give the actual worker more information to be able to complete the work. You'll see it tagged the actual asset that was sent through the work order maintenance SCADA tag. It took the GIS asset because the tag knows and is aware of the asset ID, populated it, and through the work order API, populates the correct asset, gives it the XY since we created non-spatial data to have spatial XYs in the view that we created on the SQL side. And then we send custom fields to it to allow the user of the work order to be able to fill in information
or for the SCADA tag to be automatically populated into it. The next slide, just a quick one to show you that, the whole reason we went about the XY was to be able to actually show non-spatial data in a spatial format through the view and through the GIS map in Cityworks. So I got about 3 minutes left, so I'm going to try and wrap this up so it didn't sound so complex and confusing. But the whole mindset that we approached this process for, and the reason why we did it, is we are not unlike most municipalities. We are losing a substantial amount of knowledge base on a yearly basis through retirees or through attrition and through a shrinking employee market that we have. So the whole purpose we went through this is we needed to get away from PMs from a scheduled PM idea and find a way to leverage more appropriate SOPs or the true information that is caused throughout our system, and to take advantage of this large system called a SCADA that runs most of our real-time operations, but yet is not leveraged by any workflow outside of the SCADA system. So what we're doing is we're taking advantage of, now we no longer have an oil change PM inside Cityworks for pump number 1 at the high lift pump station, sitting there waiting every 3 months. And then we send a crew out, and what we found out is those crews wouldn't just do the oil in pump 1, they would do the oil in pump 1, 2, 3, and 4 because they were all there at that time, and they felt that was an efficient method. But if the SOP on that pump is to do it after 1,000 hours, and 3 out of the 4 pumps that they were changing the oil on, because they showed up for that PM, had only run 600 hours, 500 hours. How much money are we losing by not allowing those to run their course when the SCADA system can tell us these type of operational issues? Or CSO racks. We daily go out and inspect all 30 CSO racks that the city of Akron has. But during the day, if a CSO is triggered, we're going to have to drive back out there. So can we leverage the SCADA when the CSO is triggered to automatically generate a PM to go inspect the CSO or to clean the CSO without actually having to just automatically do it on a daily basis? So those are really the idea behind why we started this strategy and why we started to push it. And we're really finding that there was a little bit of pushback, and there still is on our distribution side. Our plants have started to catch on to it more, and sewer is really going to be the one that takes the ball and runs with it. But it's very important for us to start leveraging these things and building this intelligence into the systems we already have, as we lose these 36 to 40 year employees that they just automatically know every 3 months they're going to walk out and change oil. But that might not be the actual most efficient and proper manner to do it. So that was our whole goal behind focusing on this particular workflow, and then expanding it throughout all our different scheduled processes and seeing systematically if we can start to replace those. So with that, I'm right at about the 15-minute mark. So I will stop talking, and if anybody has any questions, and my contact information is on there, so please feel free to contact me, because this is a fairly complex idea that I know is a hot topic for anybody who tries to implement it at plant. So
Thank you,
it's all
Darren.
yours, Cindy.
Thank you so much. You're not done yet. You're not off the hook. But thank you. I love how you helped Cityworks and SCADA play nice. So I have some education. Yeah. So here's a question for you. Where is the relationship between SCADA and GIS made?
Well, it is actually made through the API. So the relationship is there because we have the asset ID on the SCADA tag.
and the assets exist in a non-spatial table in the GIS, but what brings them together is the API that pushes that data from the SCADA tag to the Cityworks API, and then creates that work order through that. So without the connection at the SCADA tag level, you wouldn't be able to do it, but the API is what really makes the handshake.
That's great. One more. Could the same process be used to integrate spatial assets?
It actually is. So that table, that query view table that I showed you that has the XY, actually has spatial assets in it as well. So we actually intermingle that. So from a SCADA tag or the integration perspective, it really doesn't know the difference between either and really could care less. It just needs to know that when this tag is generated, it can find an asset in that singular table and then pull it through the API onto the work order. So it really is a fairly simple process running through that workflow.
That's great. There's a few more questions. I will send those over to you so you can address those. Thank you again for this information, and your presentation was great. Next up, we are going to be closing things out. Matt Piper is going to be wrapping up the day. He is with Esri. Hi, Matt.
How you doing, Cindy?
I'm doing good. He's going to be chatting with us today about the emerging trends for water utilities and how modern GIS is digitally transforming asset management. And so while we give him presentation control, I think we're just about there. There we go. I'm going to let you have it.
All right, thanks, Cindy. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome. As Cindy mentioned, my name is Matt Piper, and I'm the Global Industry Director for Utilities, Water, and AEC at Esri. And for those that are not aware, most of my professional engineering life was spent working in asset management at a utility, and it's something that I'm quite passionate about. So Cityworks is a fantastic partner of Esri, and this has been a really great session for me, listening to all the customer success stories and hearing what the customers have created using Esri and Cityworks. And I certainly do appreciate the opportunity to present, and I'm excited to finish out the day with a presentation on geo-enabling asset management with a modern GIS. So thank you all for staying with us. I'm going to start the presentation by looking at some of the foundations of asset management. In its simplest definition, from ISO 55000, asset management is the coordinated activity of an organization to realize value of its assets over its life cycle. And if we look at the life cycle from this definition, we see it begins with identifying a need, then planning to meet that need, acquiring the assets, then establishing maintenance strategies and programs to determine how the asset will be operated and maintained throughout its useful life, before finally being disposed of at its end of life. The other component in that definition was about realizing the value of the asset. So the objective of asset management is to maximize the performance of the assets while minimizing risk, and doing this within existing resource and cost constraints. And by doing so, this increases things like the utilization of the asset and the resilience. And as a result, it improves the value of the asset and reduces the total cost of ownership. Now, if you're working in asset management, you've no doubt been working on improving your data quality. It is something that it never goes away, and it's something that everyone is always working on. And capturing some of the foundational data points which are necessary to support your asset management strategies, it's quite simple to start looking at it that you just want to know how many assets you have, or even what condition are they in. But when you think of asset management, you may not immediately be thinking of location. However, I will challenge you that location is core to many workflow scenarios, and it assists in better decision making. You just may not have realized it yet. So let's start with those basics I just covered. So you know how many assets you own, but do you know where they are? And during scenarios of corrective or forced work, let's say, for example, if there is a water main break, the first question that is always asked is, where did the fault occur? Followed by, where are the nearest isolation valves? And if you understand the condition, you may look to see trends, in which case you'd like to know where is your network vulnerable, and compare this to both where historical failures have occurred or where future failures are forecasted. And if we focus in on the schedule and dispatch workflows, it's important to understand that where your work is located and where the nearest crews may be, as this can optimize the work plans, and it also assists in restoring supply faster. You see, the power of location is about understanding the where. And you're already thinking spatial in many of these workflows, and there's a really good reason for it. Because every asset has a location, and every location has a story to tell. And this is something we're going to explore a bit more in this presentation, because this is where GIS plays such a critical role. A modern GIS is not just the design or mapping of the water network. A modern GIS is the platform which provides a process and a framework to support your business workflows, and it supports these best practices for asset management. GIS provides the capabilities to measure and capture data about your assets. It visualizes and maps the location and network connections. It provides advanced analysis and modeling, and it is a complete planning and design solution that it assists with decision making, which ultimately leads to action. When we apply these concepts into asset management directly, we see this in three main areas that we focus on for geo-enabling asset management. The first is data management, which is bringing together all the data sources which are managing the network model and capturing and maintaining the physical asset data. It's performance assessment, which provides the insights and the advanced analytics into past, present, and future performance of the assets and the system as a whole. And it's the life cycle optimization, which is how we optimize the entire life cycle by centering it around location. So as many users in the GIS community know, Esri has released the most advanced network management capability in the world, and it's known as the ArcGIS utility network. This advanced network modeling capability was purposely built to manage and capture assets and network information for a modern water network, allowing the modeling of the complete water network from the source to the consumer, and bringing together domains from the water utilities, the water resources, and the stormwater, and other industry data models all together. It really was engineered to solve many of the current issues that are facing your organizations, but it was also designed in a way that is scalable and performant to meet the challenges of the future. So you look at this diagram, you can think of it really in three main fundamental areas. The utility network is about advanced network modeling capabilities. It's about state-of-the-art visualizations and analytics, and it's actually the underlying system architecture and security that it provides. And together these form the foundations of what we call a modern GIS that stores information, uncovers business intelligence, and communicates the role-based information to all of the stakeholders in your organization. Another key aspect of data management is around capturing and maintaining asset information. The deployment of mobility solutions is one of the fastest use cases for water organizations. With the majority of the workforce working out in the field, it provides a significant opportunity to improve efficiency, data capture, and coordinated operations. And from my experience, nothing improves the data quality in the back office faster than putting the information in the hands of the users who are performing the work. So a modern GIS takes the network and the physical asset data to these end users out in the field, and it supports their business workflows. And it does this with additional capabilities as well, which are around the scheduling, routing optimization, navigation, and tracking. One of the key differentiators between a true platform solution and a point-to-point custom or bespoke solution is how the platform is designed to work in collaboration with other enterprise solutions or systems. Having a complete interconnected enterprise solution reduces your overall technical debt. It reduces legacy integrations and moves your organization forward with the ability to stay on commercial off-the-shelf upgrade paths. As you can see from this diagram, the ArcGIS geospatial infrastructure is architected with integrations to many leading software vendors to allow seamless bi-directional communication and sharing of this information. And is almost all information in your organization has a spatial component. GIS acts as that common reference system to bring all these systems together. It integrates with many vendors and provides visualizations and analytics of your asset management data, with your CRM data, with your works management, and your finance solutions. This removes duplication of data, it creates that single source of the truth, and it reduces information latency. I just stepped through quite a few of the examples about how a modern GIS improves your organization's data management through better network management and modeling, through field deployments, and integration into these other systems. And from my experience, to perform asset management in your organization, you really need to think of your data as an asset and you need to invest in it. So you need solutions in place that support it. Now that we've covered the tools and capabilities to support the data management in your organization, the next area I'm going to focus in on is about performance assessment and how GIS is used to gain insights and understanding. Some of the examples of applications of this include visualizing your assets by location, but also looking at the attributes like age, the material and the diameter as it relates to the distribution and transmission networks. It's about applying trends for exploratory analysis to better understand usage and applying this over time, as shown here with analyzing customer excessive water usage. Then there is the tracking of the performance, the failures, and the condition of your assets. Here we can see breakdowns as it relates to the network segment, but this data is also analyzed based on the asset attributes, again to better understand whether more failures are occurring based on material or diameter of the pipes. And at the bottom, we can see how we can bring in some of the other information from systems such as your CRM to extend the analytics for things like planning and forecasting for better understanding the customer demographics, the population growth, because all these things can have an impact on how you plan your network for capacity and capital programs of work. These are just a few of the examples, but we have many customers, as you saw today, working with Esri and Cityworks that are using these techniques for empowering asset managers with insights for things like analyzing water loss, performing main break analysis based on failure rates, the pressure and corrosion of the pipes, tracking water quality across your network, and even identifying things like dead meters out in your network. Another dimension of GIS that's rapidly changing is consuming real-time information and creating business value to support this decision-making. This is all about integrating sensors across your network and enabling the Internet of Things to be used in conjunction with your GIS system. This is all about being able to consume real-time information and then use it to support business workflows and then visualize this information in easy-to-use dashboards. Being able to consume real-time information enhances an organization's situation awareness. Crews can now manage events, retracing the current network as it appears in the current operating state, and everyone can view real-time water outages. Users can see their work plans and understand where staff are located in context to the work, or how other information feeds like traffic or even weather may be impacting their current work plans. Esri has been supporting this capability now for many years, but we are excited to announce just recently a new capability called ArcGIS Velocity. This is something to watch out for because this is a completely cloud-based solution where you can analyze your streaming data of maps and dashboards and identify temporal patterns and extract location and business intelligence for big data, for real-time data, and to do high-level performance scaling analytics. Another exciting trend that we see in the water utilities is the use of AI and machine learning to better understand and predict your asset failures and begin to forecast these network impacts. Water utilities are training models to extract information automatically and then applying these algorithms to better determine future outcomes. This information can be digitized, it can be entered, or it can be captured through things like imagery and LiDAR, and it's advancing the capabilities and workflows for mixed reality and AR and VR applications, which is really quite exciting. See, ArcGIS is a complete platform, as we said, for managing and applying 3D data. Its 3D capabilities now seamlessly flow across the entire ArcGIS platform, from the desktop to the web, and to the applications. Today, you can work with a variety of 3D data sets, including point clouds, LiDAR, BIM and 3D. In the water industry, we're actually seeing significant increase of 3D working in facilities and plants, which is really opening up many users' eyes to what is possible. And we're seeing amazing work to create stunning 3D plant models and even connecting things like your 3D features with SCADA and other real-time systems, which are really exciting as many utilities move to create what they're looking for as these digital twins of their assets and of the network in context to the natural and the built environment. So asset management in a modern utility is significantly more involved than I think it has been in previous years. And it can be a little bit concerning or overwhelming with the amount of information sets you need to manage now to make a more informed decision. And understanding an asset lifecycle requires a holistic approach. It's not just about managing the age of the assets based upon their nameplates. It's not just about knowing how many assets you have or the number of failures that have occurred. To optimize an asset throughout its life cycle requires many data inputs, and they need to be brought together in a way that creates a complete 360-degree view of that asset, which is centered around location. Let me take you through a simple little workflow just to step you through what I'm talking about here. In your asset management system, you most likely have been capturing attributes on your assets that relate to condition. You're picking up historical data and you're capturing all the nameplate attributes off your data sets to manage the age. And from this data, you may be able to derive a health index of that asset, which ultimately helps you move potentially from performing time-based maintenance to more of the more strategic condition-based maintenance. However, if you want to transition past condition-based maintenance into reliability center maintenance, you need to begin to understand failure rates and criticality of the network. But so much of these decisions depend upon where the asset is located. Asset failures can depend on things like soil type, proximity to the coastline, or even if you're in an area where it's prone to other natural disasters, like things like earthquakes. So to understand the performance and the risk, you really need to understand the importance of location. So by understanding this, asset management strategies can transition into the decision-making analytics through insights or automation with some of the AI machine learning that we spoke about, which begin to optimize these asset strategies, which drive your capital refurbishment and replacement programs. It drives your planned maintenance and your operational plans. So creating that holistic asset lifecycle strategy is centered around the value of location. Let's look at this concept across the water network for water utilities, wastewater, and the stormwater networks. You can see here that the GIS is modeling the entire network. This is one of the business values of the utility network. It manages the model of the network from the source to the production, through distribution, and eventually to the consumption by the customer. It is also managing the interconnection and relationships to the wastewater and stormwater networks for the collection, treatment, and all the way back to the holding basins. But as you can see, everything in this diagram is spatial. And through location, we can begin to bring all this information back via sensors or capture this data out in the field, bringing it back to the office, creating what we call that intelligent water system. GIS is what connects the physical assets to the network. It connects the field to the office, and it connects your information to the other corporate systems. So we began today's presentation with a mission to help you understand the power of location in geo-enabling asset management with a modern GIS. So I hope you have enjoyed this presentation and have a better understanding how a modern GIS is the enabling technology for your organization to achieve its digital transformation by geo-enabling your asset management solutions. And with that, I believe, Cindy, we are pretty much out of time. So I want to thank you everyone again for your time, and I'm going to hand it back to Cindy. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. That was great. Great presentation. I love your slides. So we do have a couple of questions. You look after many industries. Can you describe what you see specifically to water?
For water, water's an interesting one, Cindy, in that it hasn't quite been as distracted by some of the other emerging trends. So we look at the electric and gas industry as an example, and the impact of renewables and trying to achieve decarbonisation targets have taken their focus away from a lot of the more traditional asset management and doing that really well as they try and solve all these other future problems. What we've noticed in water is that the actual, the premise of foundational asset management is holding really strong, and many utilities are quite mature in the fact they've got many years of data now, they've got many years of failure information. They're really starting to progress on that maturity curve, or they're actually quite mature in a lot of cases, which is now giving them that platform to really move up that chain and push the boundaries on what they can do in AI, machine learning, and some of the 3D stuff that we're talking about. So the confidence and the quality in the data has really improved, which is now opening the doors to really this next wave of technology. I don't think technology is the problem anymore. I think the technology is there. It's really now just the application to solve these business challenges.
Yeah, for sure. Great presentation. Thank you so much. It's good to know the modern GIS and digitally transforming asset management. So those two go hand in hand.
I agree.
Really great. All right.
Thank you.
So I want to thank all of our presenters. I don't know if they've all stayed on, but I want to give them all a thank you. This has been a really great session today. And I also want to bring your attention to the board behind me. We have our talented Chris Mountier here again with us, and he has been sketching out each presentation as we have gone through this afternoon, and something fun, and he is super talented. So thank you, Chris. So don't forget to mark your calendars. You want to go to the next slide for 2021 with the Cityworks Converge user summit dates there. We will also get this information out for you. And we hope that you will share Converge with your colleagues. This event is a great opportunity to engage your coworkers who are also using Cityworks, as well as introduce departments who haven't gotten started yet. And we want to hear from you, and we need your ideas for future content. So if you'd like to submit and share your ideas with the Cityworks community, please let me know by emailing me at ccurletti@cityworks.com. Thank you all again for joining us. Please take our survey as you exit this session. This allows you to provide feedback and ask additional questions. As we sign off, let's not forget we are bringing communities together, and together we keep moving forward with no limits. We'll see you all in January. Thanks again. Bye-bye.